Hello everyone, this is Zeeebo and welcome back to today's AFK journey video. So in this AFK journey video, we're gonna do an updated arena store guide and talk about the updates based on the Waves of Intrigue season. Okay, so the last time I did this was in the Soul Strife season, so it's been quite a while and I think the meta has shifted and we have a clearer picture as to what are the more commonly used units right now and what units have the potential moving forward. So without further ado, let's start with what are the things that you must buy, right? This must buy stuff has always been a must buy from last time till now, and that is obviously all the sold out Stargaze Orb. So I have been telling people since the very beginning, whenever you see this, if it's on discount and if you can get it with in-game currencies, always get it, because Stargaze Orb is basically access to some of the most powerful characters in the game, like Reina, Talon, Fresto, the powerhouses of the early game of Wave of Intrigue, and then we have some late game PvP units like Scarida, like Dino, like Barrow. So basically the whole bunch of units in the roster is insanely impactful, that going for the currency to summon for them is never wrong. You can just stock up as much as possible and wait for this all-powerful Omnipotent Celestial to come out or Omnipotent Hypogean to come out and then spend more of the currency, or you can just pull progressively to upgrade your teams. For example, Reina for Dream Realm, Talon for Dream Realm, and then Fresto for your AFK stage pushing side. So Stargaze Orb, always a must go for. Now you can actually get it even if you're not in the champions rank, so 10 per month, so remember to get them, right? If you're in the champions rank, remember to buy them, 3 per week, so 12 per month. So that's the currency income for this Stargaze Orb over here. Okay, so next one, let's talk about the units. Okay, so I'll start with the units which I will tell people to not go for them, at least based on the current meta. Number 1, Igor. Number 2, Atalanta. Number 3, Danny. And number 4, Brutus. So let's start with Brutus first. Brutus has always been a 1 copy unit that people use as a frontliner in most contents, and he still is. So you don't need more copies of him if you really have him. If you haven't gotten him yet, just get 1 copy and just make sure that you can help him survive through his inbound or last as long to not proc the inbound, and that's pretty much how you use Brutus. So there's no need to go for more copies of him, because outside of what I mentioned, he's just not very impactful everywhere else. So therefore, don't need to go for him, or he's not a priority within the shop. So Igor has always been a really decent arena character, but the reason why I don't recommend people to go for him now is that the meta is not very friendly for him. The meta is very skewed in the Wilders direction, featuring a lot of very powerful Wilders character. Obviously, Arden, Iron, Almas, Danny, Hewinn, Bryon, Lily May, for example, they're all insanely impactful. So Wilders team in general are dominating the meta. And if you are investing in Igor, it's for mostly the PvP side of things, which is not the best place to be in as an Igor user. So you'll feel really shafted if you go for him and don't find much success with him. Is he usable in arena? The answer is yes, but he's just not meta enough, or he's just counted by generally what people are using. So therefore, I don't recommend Igor. And then for Danny's case, same thing. Danny is basically sort of replaced by Almas, because Almas is control, Almas is tank, and Almas has 2 lives. And Almas synergizes with most powerful Wilders better compared to Danny. Although Danny has like more tankiness, more control, has taunt as well. So those are the strengths of Danny, but then it just got outweighed by Almas in a sense of what they want to do. And Almas is just a lot better in terms of comboing, so therefore Danny has been sort of lowered in terms of priority as well as team building. And I think the most successful game for Danny right now is PvP, but even in PvP, Iron Almas is still the go-to combo. So that's why like Danny is just in a really weird spot, and I don't recommend people to go for her, because like she has some niches, but it's just not very impactful and not very commonly used. And Atalanta has always been a bad unit from the start till now. Hasn't changed much, even with changes in the charm skills, in some abilities itself. So still not recommended. Okay, so these are the 4 units I won't recommend. Now let's talk about the AFK stage side, the PvE side. So what are the units you can consider? So Rowan is the highest priority. I used to always say this, right? Rowan doesn't need that much of a stat to work. Yes, you don't need that much of a stat for Rowan to work, but if you're using Rowan mostly for deficit pushing, I'll just showcase my AFK stage so you guys know what I'm talking about. Okay, so if we take a look at this replay over here, I'm currently at like 700 over stages. Okay, so this is my current progression. So my top player is somewhere here. So if we if you take a look at the teams right here, as you guys can see, we have Rowan, we have obviously the Iron Armors, right? We have Cecilia as well, we also have Rowan. So we also have Rowan and Cecilia over here. So Cecilia is not the main character that she used to be. Like, we used to play a lot around Cecilia being the main carry, but right now Cecilia is used more so as a secondary control, physical control with the debuff potential from the EX weapon. So for those of you guys who are not familiar with Cecilia's kit, right, Cecilia's charm skill right now has more debuff, right? Cecilia also has obviously the omnipotent root and also the debuff coming out from the Trial of Thorns over here. So the reason why you're running Cecilia in this team is because there are certain enemies on the AFK stage where they have magic immunity. You need the control from Iron Armors and Arden, and then you need some damage coming out from another physical attacker. So Cecilia just fits into that team really well because Cecilia is able to control to further lengthen the hold on the enemy and also do physical AoE damage. So Rowan has always been a really good battery unit for AFK stage push and always will be until a better substitute comes about. So in terms of Rowan's case, I did mention before that he doesn't need like a high tier to work. You don't need him to be super high tier, but you need enough tiers for him to survive, for him to get his skills off. So that is one thing which sort of makes him important to upgrade the tiers based on whether or not your account can keep him alive. So for me, because we are like pushing at massive deficits, like we are pushing at like 2 to 3 times our power, at least based on the current pacing, right? If you take a look at the number, 140 plus K, 140 plus thousand over here versus 600,000. So it's massive deficit where one hit, if your Rowan's not developed, he just dies. So that's why I got my Rowan to Supreme Plus long time ago, because this is basically me forcing the extremes of deficit pushing. So for Rowan's case, this character I'll say is the most foolproof moving forward in terms of the AFK stage pushing side, if you want to be pushing at the highest efficiency, right? So Lumon is more so to combo with Smokey because Lumon has the additional control as well. So Lumon with Smokey plus the 3 Wilders will be another team that you will see a lot in the future. And then we also have Cecilia, like I mentioned earlier. You probably have her develop in most people's accounts, so it's good to know that she's coming back. If you already have her at Supreme Plus, I think that's pretty much the max you need her to be at. You don't need to go further. But if you haven't yet and you want to have some AFK stage pushing advantage, then I think Cecilia is okay, right? If you haven't pushed her to Supreme Plus yet. So those are for the AFK stage pushing side. Cassidy is probably lower in terms of recommendation because Cassidy now is more Battle Drill centric. I don't know how well Sinbad as well as the double light barrel ultimate spamming tile will impact Cassidy, but Cassidy is one of the best, I'll say, like unit to get the benefit. So like for those of you guys who are wondering what I'm talking about this factional talent, this ability over here. If we get like the 2 tile on light barrels and then we get 1 Cassidy on one of these tiles, Cassidy's damage output will increase and Cassidy's energy regen will increase, which allows her to spam her skill, right? To reposition to spam the debuffs on the enemy. So I don't know how impactful that would be moving forward, but there is a potential for her to rise up. So is Cassidy really low? I think right now, if you base it on the current stage in time, she's mostly used for Battle Drill. But with more experimenting with light barrels, getting more powerful units moving forward, I do see Cassidy rising up for the bossing compartment. So that's for Cassidy's review. And then for the other characters, Hewinn and Bryon. Hewinn and Bryon are more PvP centric. So for my account, I have always been praising Hewinn because Hewinn has always been a game changer arena. So much so that Dun is basically introduced to counter Hewinn, to be honest. In case you guys are wondering why Dun has an anti-heal, it's for Damien and Hewinn, because in arena, if they pop off their heal and you have no way to shut their heal down, you basically lose the game, and that's the reason why you have done with the Cure Lock lockdown on your Hewinn teams. So that's the rationale for done with Cure Lock. And with regards to Hewinn's usage for me, I've just been using her a lot for different game modes, right? I use her for AFK stage push, for arena, for certain battle drill bosses that hurts like crap, so I use Hewinn a lot. So therefore, in terms of versatility on my main account, I do intend to push her to Paragon 4 eventually, so I just buy out her shards every single reset. So she is a very high priority for me, but depending on whether or not you value her PvP prowess and whether or not you use her as often as I do, she might not be a priority for you. So lastly we have Bryon over here. So For Bryon's case, Bryon now has a very niche use but a very impactful one, because he's used to bait out Lady May's ultimate for Bryon. So I mean for Iron. So Bryon is a wilder that fits into the Iron mage teams, and then being able to bait out Lady May's ultimate to allow Iron's ultimate to go through to start whatever combo you want to do is actually quite impactful. So therefore Bryon has this very fringe use if your server doesn't have that many done. So if your server has a bunch of whales with a bunch of Dunlier in the teams, the Dunlier is just going to shut down the ultimate of Iron, and then Bryon doesn't matter, right? But if you don't have and everybody's using the enemy to counter Iron itself, consider getting a Bryon up. It is decently helpful for those kind of situations. And another thing about Bryon which makes him a rising stock is because he's one of the 2 units with this debuff ability. So right here, if we go into Bryon's charm skill, so this debuff over here is actually pretty big. It's like 15%, 20%, right? And it reduces the target's vitality, which might rise in stock value depending on what the next Primal Lord boss offers, if the boss has some heal features. So that's one thing about Bryon that you guys might want to keep a lookout for, and that's pretty much it for the arena store. Okay, so in terms of the general versatility one, I think Hewinn, as well as Rowan, as well as Cassidy, they are the better of the bunch. Then we have obviously Zeee, which you can consider, Lumon, which you can consider, and then Bryon you can consider. Okay, units like Brutus, Igor, Danny, as well as Atalanta, please don't go for them, and 1 copy of Brutus will be enough. Okay, so that's pretty much it for my updated arena store guide for the Waves of Intrigue update. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys.